What's going on テンセムカードの久 F です。本日は、なんとですね、マーケットムーバーズのタイラーさんをお招きしてですね、本日、カードグレーディングについて、ちょっとお話をね、させていただければと思います。ちょっとタイラーさんにね、彼の2週間ぐらい前ですかね、リリースされた、ちょっとね、面白い動画。こちら、マーケットムーバーズから、リリースされてるんですけど、動画、なんとね、ケン・グリフィージュニアのカードをですね、BGS9.5 のケン・グリフィージュニアのカードを PSA であったり、タグであったり、SGC であったり、そういったね、鑑定会社にその同じカードを送って、どういった結果がね、返ってくるかっていうところを研究された動画となっております。で、そのね、鑑定結果なんですけど、本当にびっくりするような結果となっててですね、詳しくはね、マーケットムーバーズのね、チャンネルで確認してみてください。そんなね、研究されたタイラーさんをお招きしてですね、スポーツカードの鑑定について本日はね、お話ししていきたいと思います。はい。皆さんね、マーケットムーバーズご存知あると思います。僕のチャンネルだとね、いつも、参考にさせていただいているので、そのマーケットムーバーズの開発に携わっている責任者の方になります。で、本日ね、そのマーケットムーバーズを使って、どうやってね、お得にね、カードを探すことができるかとか、そういったところもね、紹介されているので、ぜひね、皆さんね、ご参考までに見ていただいて、で、それで興味あった方いらっしゃいましたら、2週間ね、なんとね、マーケットムーバーズ無料で使えます。なので、ぜひね、僕のね、コードを使って、2週間無料体験と、あと、20% オフになるので、ぜひね、ご利用いただければと思います。タイラーさんの研究結果なんですけど、そのね、BGS9.5 のケン・グリフィージュニアアッパーデック、1989年のアッパーデックですね、のカードがね、どうやって変わっていたか、本当にね、すごい変化をしていってですね、鑑定ってなんだろうって考えさせられるような動画内容となっております。で、実はね、これスポーツカードだけではなくて、ポケモンカード、1999年のベースセットのミュウチュウ鑑定も研究されております。なので、ポケモンファンの方もぜひ参考になると思うんで、見ていただければと思います。はい、ではですね、ちょっと早速ではあるんですが、インタビュー動画を皆さんにお送りしていきたいと思います。では、行ってみましょう。皆さんこんにちは。本日は特別ゲストをお招きしております。僕もかなり愛用しているマーケットムーバーズを代表するタイラーさんです。Tyler, thank you for joining the show. Can you introduce yourself to the Japanese fans and explain your role in the sports card and TCG community?
Yes, absolutely. Watashi wa Tyler desu, I think is how I would say my name. Something with that probably totally different intonation. But thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to speak with you, and I appreciate the chance to talk to your collectors and audience in Japan as well. I work for Sports Card Investor here in the United States, and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And I have been working for my boss, Jeff Wilson. Some of your audience, I'm sure, knows who he is as well, for a little over 6 years now. And basically what I do is oversee all of our software app development for market movers, as well as a few other apps that are kind of more free for entry-level collectors. And I've also been doing content, YouTube videos and other things for 5 years now, which has been really exciting. And I've gotten to grow with, being comfortable on the camera and just creating a lot of really, I try to create a lot of interesting content, some of which I think we'll talk about today.
Yeah, one of my reasons why I got back in the hobby is because of market movers, and it's been very fascinating to watch your show. And also, I love using the tool, and I get a lot of comments about market movers whenever I use market movers on my YouTube channel. 本日は、タイラーさんが最近実行された鑑定実験について、お伺いしていきたいと思います。なんとタイラーさん5つの鑑定会社に同じケン・グリフィージュニアのアッパーデックルーキーカードを鑑定され、元々が BGS9.5 鑑定だったカードがどのように変化をしていったか、その過程を記録された、動画をリリースされました。本日はですね、その実験についてお伺いしていきたいと思います。 はい。で、こちらの、動画はですね、マーケットムーバーズのチャンネルからご覧いただくことが可能なので、ぜひ皆さん見てみてください。So Tyler, can you please take us through the community, like through your journey to this grading experiment that you've done?
Absolutely. So grading is a topic that I've had a lot of different opinions on over the years. I got back into collecting in 2019 and obviously kind of learned that grading had become very popular even back then and only more popular as time has gone on, especially with PSA. And something that I've had a hard time with over the years is the difference in price between a gem mint PSA 10 and then basically every other grade, whether it's a PSA 9 or obviously a raw ungraded card or a BGS 9.5, that gap has just continued to rise for that PSA 10. And sometimes it has confused me because a lot of people know about the inconsistency of sending your cards to get them graded. If you go to YouTube and you watch a video of anybody doing their grading reveal, showing the grades they got, they're always like, well, I really thought this was a 10. Why did it get a 9? I really thought this was a 10. Why did it get a 6? I really thought this was a 10 over and over. And so usually it's small differences, right, that determine that difference in grade. And that has kind of made me wonder, well, how consistent are they if we're going to put this big belief with our money into these PSA 10 cards that they must be like perfect or near perfect condition? Are they really? Is that very consistent? And so I decided to do this experiment last year where I took 2 cards that started out in Beckett BGS, slabs, and then crack them and send them to other grading companies to see how do they compare to one another. And so that's where I think the focal point with this Ken Griffey rookie card, one of the most well-known baseball cards in the world, I took it out and it went from that 9.5 to an SGC trimmed, meaning somebody cut it, to CGC 9 and then to PSA 6. And those results alone were very, very, very confusing.
Yes.
And so I asked my audience in the comments, what should I do next? And I got a lot of different ideas. And ultimately I said, well, let me send it to TAG, who does the machine vision, computer vision grading, as well as to Arena Club, who do a similar process. So it's more automated than it is manual by humans. And then I went back to SGC, who graded it this time a 9 instead of saying it was trimmed. And I went to PSA, who bumped it up from a 6 to an 8. Wow. And then finally, the big moment at the end was, what's Beckett going to say? They started this process with a 9.5, and my moment of like hands in my face, face in my hands was they said it was trimmed. They said it was authentic trimmed. So they graded it previously like 10 years ago, and this time around they said no, it's trimmed. So it was a very eye-opening and confusing experiment.
Definitely. Well, after seeing one card transverse the spectrum from VGS 9.5 to an altered rejection, what is the single most important lesson you want collectors to understand about the authority of a grade?
I think I would say that I want collectors to understand that grading is subjective. It's done by humans, and it's important to be realistic about that. I don't think we need to be negative about it or critical. I think we just have to be real, open and honest about that it is done by human beings, just like you and me, just like your audience. And we're told that they have training to help them know how to assess the condition, but it can still be very inconsistent. And as long as it's done by humans, it will be. So I do believe grading is important. I think it has an important place in the hobby, especially for hopefully detecting counterfeit fake cards to make, to give you confidence that the card you're buying is real. Right. But I also believe that it can be overvalued for many cards. And in vintage, if you take older cards, vintage cards, for example, grading often reflects or should reflect the eye appeal of the card. That's the term we always use. What does the card look like? Does it look nice? Is it in a good condition? However, you can have a PSA 1 that looks very nice relative to its grade, but the problem may be that the back of the card has some damage or some paper loss or something from the way it was stored. You can also have a PSA 5 that looks very poor on the front. Maybe it's very off center, or there's a big blemish on the eyeball of the player or something, but it can still be a 5. I know you really like the 1996 Topps Chrome Kobe Bryant rookie card, and I'm a big Kobe guy as well. I saw a BGS 10 pristine on Instagram for sale recently, and it was totally green, what we call hulked out, like the Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
And I would rather have a PSA 8 with good centering and good color and maybe some damage somewhere on the edge or something than a BGS 10 pristine that's green. So there's always exceptions, and I think that's really important to understand.
It really depends. Like if you're collecting as a collector, definitely like grade honestly doesn't truly really matters. Definitely like we would love a PSA 10, but like as long as like you have the nice card, like let's say you have a patch card or something, and I'd rather take a nice patch and a PSA 8 than a napkin patch with a PSA 10. So like it doesn't really matter the grade. If you love the player and if you love the card, the grade truly doesn't really matter at the very end, because you're not going to really sell it, you know? Like at the worst case, maybe, you know, your family might let it go, but you know, like I wouldn't really care unless if I'm trying to flip it or something, but you know, I wouldn't want to flip. I'm a Toronto Raptors fan, and I'm a true like DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry fan. And lately, I really love Norman Powell. I'm so happy that he got into the All-Star this year. But like those type of cards, like I'm not looking for value. I'm just looking to collect it and, you know, enjoy the collecting about it. So yeah, definitely completely agree with what you said. I have another question. In Japan, actually, you know, there's PSA Japan, and it's been around for about 2-3 years. I really love the fact that PSA opened up in Japan, and it's so much more convenient. In the past, how we graded was there were PSA Japan, but they sent all the cards over to US to get graded. And it took about like 6-8 months, and then it came back. So like, it's pretty much like, I know like US, it took a long time to get the cards graded, but for us, we needed to wait like a month in Japan and get it shipped, wait like 6-7 months and get it back. And again, like wait maybe 2 weeks to finally get your shipping arrival. Well, like I think it's great for PSA that they opened up in Japan. But there's a bit of a controversy in Japan. A lot of Japanese collectors feel that PSA Japan is much more stricter than PSA USA. And there's actually collectors that send directly to USA because Japan is much more stricter. What do you like from your experience, like with this grading gacha? Like, do you think this type of like difference, maybe like they say Japanese people are more stricter, and do you think these things really happen? And like I know you talk about human like subjectivity, but do you feel like this type of things that really occur like between Japan and US? How do you feel about something like that?
I think that's a really interesting question. I haven't personally submitted anything to PSA Japan, so I don't have any direct like personal anecdotal experience with it. But I can tell you, you know, from the perspective of an American, Japan has like a global reputation for discipline and craftsmanship and strong attention to detail. And I think those values show up in a lot of areas of Japanese culture. So it wouldn't surprise me if collectors feel that way in Japan, that those standards are applied very carefully, maybe with more scrutiny. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's possible. I don't know what the training program was like for PSA, for the graders in Japan. And I don't know how they got that off the ground. Like I imagine they must have brought some of their graders from the United States to PSA Japan and then brought in others to hire and to train them on those standards. Right. My biggest takeaway for me from the experiment that I did just within the United States was that it's just that human subjectivity. And so even within the same company in the United States, you can have two graders who see the same card differently. One of them thinks it's a 10, one thinks it's a 9. And it's very difficult. It's a very difficult task for any grading company, PSA or anyone else, to try to get every grader to think exactly the same about the different standards. It's difficult. So, you may have I imagine there are graders in PSA Japan who would actually be a little more lenient and easier on cards and the grades than in the US, but maybe there's more in Japan that are stricter. I don't actually know. But I think there's just that natural variation that comes with human judgment. And I haven't been able to conduct that experiment yet, but now I'm interested. Maybe you and I need to partner on some experiment, and I'll send it to the United States and then send it to you, and you send it to PSA Japan, and we'll do the.
Maybe I'll send you some Japanese baseball cards.
That's what we should do, is have you send me some cards that were graded in PSA Japan.
That's good.
We're on to something.
Yeah, we can try that.
Now we can't tell PSA.
Okay. I have a different question. If you were building a grading company from scratch, like, what is the golden rule that you want to bake into the system to guarantee consistency?
Ooh. Well, as I've said, as long as it's done by humans, it's very difficult to guarantee consistency. I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I believe the only way to move forward is to make some combination of technology as it's getting better to scan the card and assess and analyze its size, make sure the size is good. The centering is an easy thing to assess. There are now even more mobile apps that you can use to scan and look at centering of cards. And then, maybe if you really were prioritizing consistency, it would need to go to many graders, like 3 or 4 or 5 different graders, all to look at the card quickly and then do an evaluation of the grade. I say that knowing that a big factor for people is how quickly can they get their cards back. And so if you need to send it to multiple graders, now you slow down your process, you increase your operating cost as a grading company. And so I don't know that that's actually realistic. And so some combination of the technology, give that data to the human being to still make the determination, right? So, okay, yes, I'm a human. I can see there's a centering issue in this. I also need grading to be somewhat subjective about the condition of the eye appeal of the card. Like there is an aspect of that. And so I have kind of a bigger picture thought about grading in general. So ever since I put this video out, this has been just constantly on my mind, seeing a lot of comments and feedback and other people's thoughts and opinions. And my bigger idea that I talked about on a podcast recently was maybe for grading, we're getting into too much detail, like down to too many things that you can't even really see. That's why collectors get confused when they get a card back as a 9 or an 8 when they thought it looked really good.
Right.
If I can't see with my human eyeball that there's a problem with the card, should it be less specific? Maybe counting all the way up from 1 to 10 with 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, all the way up to 10. Maybe that's too much. Maybe grading should be more like, I don't know if you and your audience know, like the tier ranking system of like that people use to rank things like S tier, A tier, B tier, like down. And just if the card really is in immaculate condition according to the grader, then that should be an S tier grade. But if it looks really strong, maybe that S tier is more like the standard that you would get for like a Beckett 10. Like it just really has to be the top condition. But we could normalize A tier being more like 9s and 10s just together. Like they're so close. They can go either way. They're so close. I think that would be a healthy thing. I don't think it will ever happen. In fact, I'm sure it will not happen. But if I were just rewriting history and saying, how would it make the hobby a little healthier, even, and a little less obsessed with the number and more obsessed with the card and its traits, its attributes, and the beauty of the card, I feel that would be a better scenario overall. What do you think?
I like that. Like, I feel like actual condition of the card is one attribute of the card.
Yes.
Like there's also others like rarity, like serial, and like the patch, the cleanliness, the design, the how the player looks on the photo. Like these type of aspects could be part of the grade, or we don't really need to call it a grade. Maybe like as you said, like we could have a tier of it could be like the S tier design card, and like it doesn't necessarily have to be like it has rounded corners or anything like that. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very good point. I've actually never thought of it like that. Like essence of the card could be like the total grade. And thank you. Okay, I just wanted to also ask you, since we have you on from Market Movers, when it comes to like trusting the slabs, and I think data is something that we can definitely trust. And how could Market Movers help collectors navigate this uncertainty? And what features should our Japanese audience here and the collectors here can use to protect their investments?
Great question. Thank you. I did an interview on another YouTube channel called Because I'm Carlos, and he had an interesting view after my video where his opinion was telling his audience, guys, I'm not mad about this inconsistency. I actually think it's something that I can take advantage of. It's a market inefficiency. And he went on to describe that he wanted to buy this Brett Favre American football card that he had been looking for some time. Mm-hmm. And he found one on Fanatics Collect that was a PSA 6.
Okay.
And so because it was a PSA 6, he got a great deal on the card because people viewed it as inferior. They didn't look at those attributes like the patch and the auto and the other things on it. They just said, oh, no, it's a PSA 6. And so from his opinion, he said, I got this card I've wanted and longed for in my collection for an even better price. And if I ever need to sell it or want to sell it in the future, I can probably get more money if I crack it out and sell it as a raw card. Now, some people say, is there integrity in that? I don't know. But like that was his angle, is there's market inefficiency. I believe you can find that same market inefficiency by looking at various cards in the different grades. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what you'll see is, I refer to a lot of cards as leading indicators, meaning they're the first movers when something goes up or down. Mm-hmm. And then there are other cards that follow in that path slightly slower. So many times PSA 10 cards are the first leading movers, the leading indicators, and the other grades, the 9s, and maybe other companies follow a little bit behind, up and down. So Market Movers gives you those charts and gives you those price movements across our database of millions of cards, so that you could go in, and if you're targeting a specific player, let's say this guy who keeps impressing us every day, Mr. Ohtani, hitting a grand slam, and you're like, wow, okay, what's going to happen to his cards? You can watch over the next week and see his PSA 10s do this and say, well, now I see those moving day 1, day 2. Mm-hmm. Let me find some other grades, let me find an SGC 10 or a PSA 9 or something, and trying to kind of get those at a better value. And the other tool that I think is really powerful for that is what we call intelligence reports. Mm-hmm. And it's so that it's a tool for our unlimited tier, our top tier. It gets you ratios. So a number comparison of one card to the other. And you can look at grade ratios in particular. So if you'd like, I could briefly show that and what that looks like. I'll just give a brief screen share. Okay. And just so your audience knows. And so what this does is I'm comparing PSA 10 to PSA 9, and I just put in Ohtani. Okay. And so now it's telling me across all of his cards that have sold in the last 14 days that on average his 10s are selling for 3 times as much as his 9s are. This card is such a great example. We were just, speaking about how a lot of his Japanese cards are getting very popular. So if I click on this, it will show the price movements. So look at the difference in the chart here, right? And so if you saw this card at $7.59 sold on March 1st, and then you saw this card on March 4, all the way up at $6,375, that gap has increased. And so you may be able to find one of these in a private negotiation or at a card show. And if that seller is saying, well, this is my last comp price at $7.59, maybe they are saying, well, they're going up a lot. But if you could get that card from, this price, 5,000 up to here, try to negotiate somewhere in between, you can come out very positively on the right side. And so this tool helps you find outliers where maybe you want to buy the 9 if the 10 is too inflated. Or you can, you can kind of flip it sometimes, and you'll have other scenarios where you're like, why is this so close? Maybe I want to buy the 10. So this is very powerful because, again, we have 6.7 million cards that we're tracking. And we have, for somebody like Ohtani in particular, or Kobe or Michael Jordan, or the biggest names, we have a significant majority of their cards being tracked so that you can chart them and, track their price changes over time and just see, oh, wow, look at that. Look at that. PSA 10s are going up. So this is a very powerful tool. I call it a power user tool for people who do a little bit more, like a little bit deeper analysis. It won't tell you what to do, but it will give you the data so that you can make decisions.
Wow. Yeah. You can tell that PSA 9s are such a deal.
It looks like it. Yeah, it looks like whoever bought that on March 1st got a really good value.
Yeah, definitely. Well, both of those cards are low pop too. So yes. The PSA 10 and PSA 9. So there shouldn't be that much of a big of a gap between the two. So, well, yeah, that's a very powerful tool to have. Like you said there's 6.2 million cards in there, right?
6.7.
6.7. So and you have the Japanese Ohtani cards in there too, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's very nice. So 視聴者の皆さん、もし日本の大谷選手のカードも比べてみたいと思っても、このマーケットムーバーズでできちゃうっていうことをタイラーさんがちょっと見せていただきました。はい。So, Tyler, just one last question. Where can our viewers in Japan follow you for the latest experiments that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. The videos I do every week on Market Movers YouTube, and I also do a lot of videos on the Sports Card Investor YouTube as well. And then I also do a baseball card podcast with 4 other guys that's called Spitballin' Cards on YouTube. And we have a Discord group and other things if you're into baseball where we talk a lot about Ohtani. I think there's a specific Ohtani channel, like he's obviously heavily discussed, and as well as other baseball players, and if anybody is interested in that. And other than that, just thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation, and appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience in Japan.
Thank you, Tyler. I was really happy to have you on, and it was such a amazing experiment that you've done. And I think a lot of viewers here were always curious, and I think you nailed it in that video. Amazing work. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your experiments, and hopefully we get to chat again.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Okay. Great. では、皆さん、マーケットムーバーズのタイラーさんでした。ありがとうございました。Thank you very much, Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you.
はい、皆さんどうだったでしょう？本当にね、タイラーさんに今回、来ていただいてですね、皆様と一緒にね、お話をしていただいたっていうのは本当にね、僕のチャンネルで、こういったことを、実現できたこと、本当に嬉しく思っております。改めまして、タイラーさん、あと視聴者の皆さん、本当にありがとうございます。タイラーさん とはね、マーケットムーバーズつながりでですね、ナショナルでもね、一度お会いさせていただいたこともあってですね、何回かやり取りをさせていただいております。マーケットムーバーズを使って、タイラーさんもですね、すごく面白い研究をされていて、僕いつもね、参考にさせていただいております。ぜひね、皆さんもね、タイラーさんのね、動画見てみたいって方いらっしゃいましたら、ぜひね、マーケットムーバーズの、チャンネルに行って、最新動画チェックしてみてください。鑑定に関しては、本当にこのチャンネル見ていただいている方はご存知だと思うんですけど、最近はね、あんまり鑑定結果の動画を作ってはいないんですけど、本当に大好きでですね、鑑定が、趣味みたいなところがあって、で、カードを、鑑定に出して、で、それで結果を見るのが楽しいっていうのが、一つ自分の好きな、このね、カードコレクションの楽しみの一つでもあると思っていて、で、それでね、過去は、ね、1枚1000円ぐらいでね、鑑定ができたんですけど、今はちょっと高くなっちゃって、今だってね、本当に4、5千円ですからね、バルクで4000円で、安くても4000円ってなっちゃったんで、なかなかね、出せる機会はないかもしれないんですけど、もし、PSA 鑑定とか、鑑定される方いらっしゃいましたら、こういったことはありますが、人間がね、鑑定しているっていうところがあるので、毎回、パーフェクトではないっていうところは理解しないといけないかなと思います。で、やっぱね、僕が思うには一番難しいところって、最近のね、モダンカード、2010年以降のカードにつきましては、9と10の差ってね、すごい難しいと思うんですよね。で、そこをね、なぜ9だったのかっていうところ、そこを説明するのってすごい難しいところかなとなるとは思うんですよ。で、そこをね、マシンラーニングで、マシンでグレーディングして、AI でね、グレーディングして、それでより細かくね、分析されたような結果出すような、そういった鑑定っていうのはすごく目に見える将来できるんじゃないかなっていう想定はできるんですけど、今回ね、平さんがおっしゃったように、カードの、ね、状態っていうのは、やっぱカードの素晴らしさのうちの一つの要素である。それは僕も間違いないなと思っていて、カードってね、さっきの話にも出てたように、パッチだったり、すごい綺麗なパッチがついているとか、またサインがすごい綺麗に載っているとか、カードのかっこいい、写真がすごく綺麗、選手の写真がとてもアイコニックであるとか、そういったね、いろんな要素が詰め合わさったようなところで鑑定結果を出すとか、そういうのも面白いなとは思いました。鑑定結果っていうか、カードのね、自体の魅力とか、そういったところを、鑑定にするのもすごい面白いんじゃないかなーって本当にね、今日話しながら思いました。僕もね、やっぱかっこいいカード、デザインがいいカード、写真とかで覚えられてるようなアイコニックなポーズとか、そういったところもね、本当に全てが要素に入ってくると思うんですよね。カードの良さのね。やっぱそういったとこも踏まえた上で僕もカードを集めているんで、決していつもね、鑑定で結果がね、多分いい結果になるんじゃないかなと思って、カードを集めてるわけじゃなくて、本当にね、カードとか、状態とかね、それはもう本当に一部であるっていうところですね。それをね、本日のね、動画で皆さんに伝えたいなと思って、タイラーさんをお招きさせていただきました。本当にね、タイラーさんありがとうございます。Thank you, Tyler, for coming to the show. I hope we can speak again. はい。皆さんね、本当にね、ここまでご視聴ありがとうございます。ぜひ、この動画少しでもためになった方いらっしゃいましたら、高評価をいただくのと、あとチャンネル登録がまだの方、ぜひね、チャンネル登録を検討ください。あとね、マーケットムーバーズのチャンネル、皆さんね、チェックしてみてください。で、あとマーケットムーバーズのツールもね、興味ある方、2週間無料で使えるので、ぜひ、試してみたいって方いらっしゃいましたら、試してみてください。はい。では、また